All right, guys. Happy to have everybody back on the podcast. This is Rafi Chowdhury, host of The Chowdhury Show, where we interview and bring on world-class experts in various domains and try to really dig into their story and their lives to figure out what did it take for them to go from absolutely nothing to a world-class expert in something. And today we have a really special guest, Andrew Chanthaphone. And Andrew is an amazing person that I've met actually at an Okta conference in DC. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan of Andrew himself. He's got a lot of really cool things that he's doing in cybersecurity and specifically in the identity and access management space. He's creating LinkedIn learning courses. He's got his own consulting he's doing. He's very established in the professional world. He's partnered up with Okta to create all types of really amazing content in this space. So today I want to welcome Andrew, who's got 23 plus years of experience in the identity access management space, which is no small run. So Andrew, take me back. How did all of this begin for you, and what pulled you into the identity access management space before it was even a buzzword?
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Rafi, for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate it. So it's funny, my story really started back in, I want to say around 2012, where I fell into identity by pure accident. And that's not uncommon for a lot of people when you talk to people in the identity space. You don't just go like, hey, I want to be an IAM person. A lot of times it's I fell into it. And identity has evolved over a lot of times from there. So when I started my career, I got a role as a business analyst, somebody who talks about how to get to requirements, how to move people from one to another, help make decisions from there. And the company was using a product called SailPoint Identity IQ, or IQ for short. And when I used that tool, I learned a lot about IAM. I never really understood what all that meant. I didn't know what an ACL was, which is an access control list. I had no idea. And it was just a trial by fire, but I was very fortunate to met a group of guys, a different consulting company, because we were three companies into one to really help build this identity for this company. And they taught me everything in terms of why are we doing join remove reliever, why are access requests important, what are certifications. And that's really what started my career. Is from that point on, I hit the bug because it was something where in my career, I really enjoyed that aspect of IAM. And from that point on, from 2012 up, I worked myself into where I am today, where I'm still like an engineer, sort of a lead. From there, where I do multiple type of things. And a lot of my journey is really just learning everything that I could and being on projects where I see different companies, be from the government space, because I am a government contractor today, or commercial space, which I've done in the past, and seeing their use cases and seeing ones that are common and ones that are uncommon in this and how they use different products today. And really for your audience is really just me taking the time to learn the whole identity world, ask questions to experts who I consider mentors for me, and then playing in the space. What I mean by that is playing along, like taking the applications we're deploying for our customers and really understanding the rhyme and reason behind it. And that's really where I think is what can get people from zero to hero, or from a beginner fresh into identity to somebody who has experience, is taking that knowledge and learning the basics from there and applying it the best they can in the identity world. And that's my journey from how I got to where I first started, fell into the world today, and taking different roles. By the way, I went from a BA tester, project management or PM, technical PM, to where I am today, which is again a engineer slash lead, where I do some coding here and there, but it's more engineering, building stuff, and then of course explaining it to people from there. Yep.
Hmm. Wow, amazing. That is quite a list of accomplishments, which many of us probably can't even get to in a lifetime. So let's dig a little bit deeper. I want to get kind of into the the personal side of this. So, most of us going through school, when we're asked what do we want to be when we grow up, we don't say that I want to be an IM engineer, right?
Right.
So how do
Yeah.
you feel like you stumbled into this? Like, what was your educational background that led you to those first couple of jobs that led you eventually in this field?
So I've always been in the technical space as a child growing up. My dad bought computers, I played with it, I broke computers, I had to learn how to fix it. From there, so all the way through high school to college, I went to school for computers. And that's where I just grew myself into more. And I realized early in college career, I didn't want to be a coder because I lived in a lab. I thought that was boring, especially a person who played sports in college, where I kind of want to hang out and have fun with my friends. So I took more the business route, where it's more your CIS majors, your MIS, those type of majors from there. And when I got out of school, there was really something where I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do from there, right? And the beginning of my career was I was a tester and I just tested software, and I never understood how customers use software from there. And that was my career, honestly, from probably like 2012, 2002, because it shows how old I am,
Mhm.
2002 through about 2012, right, when I talked about it. And it wasn't again until I found a role, because I was working for a local agency, like a local government agency, doing more of a BA type of a training role, where then I got let go for some weird reasons. It just didn't work out for me, and I needed a job. And that's where I applied for a job for a business analyst role, and that's the BO was the identity role from there. So that's really how
Mhm.
I got to it, and that's how really I fell into that space from there. Because they're like, yeah, it was just sale point. I'm like, cool, what's that? Is that a tool for kayaking or something like that? Like, no, it's a tool for identity. Like, what's that? And then I remember them going, here's a use, here's the user guide. Pff, have at it. And that's kind of how I learned from there, and that's how I got into the space where it is today. And it's evolved over time, where schools are now teaching a little bit identity, still not enough. Because I where this is where I get baffled, and you talk to a lot of identity people today in the educational space too, that where it's still lacked, that they don't teach IAM or even the core concepts. There's some great people like Lance Pearson who does, because he's actually an adjunct teacher. He's awesome. I love that guy. I met him a couple times. He does that where he teaches identity, a part of his curriculum. But a lot of
Mhm.
times, if you go to school today, your engineering classes, they don't have it. They just teach you engineering stuff or software development items, but they don't teach you identity, which is funny because when you go to school, even for, let's say, cybersecurity, a lot of times, and it's majority of the time, the first entry way into when you get a hacker is through your identity. That's the first things people go for. And it's just surprised to me where schools don't teach that today, or at least have more in depth to teach them. And I think that's where a lot of people who graduate college have that struggle when it comes to trying to find
Right.
roles in IAM, because they don't really understand the core concepts of identity. And I think that's a lack of our schools teaching that, because it should be in the curriculum, at least a chapter of it, and they don't, which is sad. I know some schools are doing it again, but not all. And I feel like that should be a core curriculum in all cybersecurity classes in schools is identity, because I think that helps them for the foundation of, especially for somebody who's going to school to be like a pen tester or a scripter or coder. You understand, if you're coding something, the vulnerabilities that can access it from an identity perspective to access your code, or anything like that, a database. It helps them, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Maybe they need to make your LinkedIn learning course as part of the curriculum in most universities,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
that'd be cool.
so speaking of that, that was actually one of the most impressive things to me when I met you and I did some, researching on your website and found out more about you. It's one thing to go into identity access management, become a security engineer, architect, and hold a high position and make $300,000. But it's a whole separate ball game to have your own courses that you're creating, you're consulting, you partnered up with Okta. I've seen you speak on stage to thousands of people. You've partnered up with
Mhm.
LinkedIn and created a learning course. How did you get into all of those things? And how do you think, what do you think was the pivotal moment when you were like, okay, I need to now expand into all these entrepreneurial areas of this thing as well?
So the biggest reason why I got to content creation was because there was none. You had awesome people who made newsletters and talked about it on LinkedIn, but I never saw anything on IAM. And that's where I sat there for a while, and I'm saying to myself, dude, why don't you do it? And for me, I was scared, and this is imposter syndrome, because I was always afraid that, if what if I didn't know what I know today, or what if I didn't know what I'm talking about? Maybe I'm full of crap. And that was the fear that I had, or people in comments like, what's this dude talking about? And that's what scared me. But after a while, I say, you know what? Screw it. Jump in deep end. I have so much knowledge to give to people. And I knew I struggled when I first started, and I didn't know who to go to. And there was no books, there was no courses. And again, a lot of people today, YouTube was not a thing when I was back when I first started identity. again, 2012, I don't think YouTube was a thing, or maybe it was a small thing, wasn't like it is today, or any online learning application like LinkedIn, for example. So I did it. I jumped in, I started doing it, and the goal was to help people. That was it. It wasn't to make money at all. It was just that I had so much content I want to share with people to get more people into this space. And I just did it and it just grew. And I was so happy to hear people's comments saying, "Oh, dude, I find your stuff. It's so helpful." I'm like, exactly what I want to do. And
Hmm.
that's how LinkedIn found me, was they were looking for creators that was in identity because it was such a niche market, and they never
Hmm.
had anybody to do that stuff. So I I got contacted by them. They asked me to audition. I did a quick 5-minute YouTube video. I sent to them and they reviewed it. They're like, "Sweet, dude, you're in." And it was that whole process where I was able to do a course, and I was so grateful to do that, and very
Wow.
nervous. And the first course was mainly driven by lecture, which is fine, by slides. But then during the whole process, my producer was like, "Dude, do you want to be on camera at the end?" I looked at him and was like, "Really? Why?" He goes, "Love your energy." And I think that's something where I'm blessed to have that, because I love identity so much, because it gave me where I am today. So that's where he put me on camera at the end to you have a little ending and tell everybody I'm excited for this course, and it was great. So when they asked me to come back to do another course, they're like, "Dude, we're gonna put you on the camera more." And I think that was so cool to do that. And that's how that really started, was just my YouTube videos created me the opportunity to do LinkedIn Learning, to get more my message out to people and to really help people, because it's such a big platform from there. And
Yeah.
then recently I just developed my own course because, again, I don't see a lot of people making courses that to teach people. Now, you have vendor courses that are specific. You have your sell points, your forge rocks, your cyber arcs, but they're expensive, dude. I mean, like in the
Right.
G's, thousands of dollars. And I'm going, wait, why are we trying to put people in the poorhouse to get people into this space? Because the only way people get access to it is if they get a job into the where their partner, which is already hard today, which is a joke in that part of it, or they got to pay out of pocket, which not anybody can
Hmm.
drop $1,500 on a vendor course without having the opportunity to go. So hey, so give me a job or not. So,
Right.
and then there are people who make great content, are lecture based, but for me, I always felt like hands-on is the best way to learn, and that's how I learned.
Yep.
So that's what developed the course. It took me hours. Dude, I must have spent at least 100 hours making this course. And it was a beginner
Wow.
course that I just launched, where it's, hey, I'm going to teach you the basics. I'm going to explain to you how it works. I'm going to give you examples of my own experience from there, which is, I think, different. And I'm going to hook you up with a lab. You're going to play around and do it yourself. And you're going to learn joiner, mover, lever in actual software that people actually
Hmm.
use today. And to get you an idea, because in my opinion, as long as you know the basics or how things are work, any system that you're given to you, you can learn it very quickly.
Hmm.
That is a hill I'm gonna die on. I tell people all the time, dude, you give me a job on, let's say, Savient. I'll learn that in a week and a half, 2 weeks, because I know
Right.
identity the best I can. I can do it. They're all the same in my opinion. And I know this might ruffle some feathers. Could be. They're all the same, dude. All the
Right.
applications are the same. They're just a different UI, different feel, some features here and there, but it doesn't matter. The whole point of each software is I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z thing identity. As long as I know that information, how to solve it, or the use case that my customers want to do, doesn't matter what software you pick. You can do it that way as long as you understand it. So that's where I feel like the course helps people, especially beginners, learn about identity and get to play with it. So to me, they can go, yeah, when they get interviews, hopefully interviews from there, they get explained to them in an easy fashion. And when people ask questions, like, "Oh yeah, I did hands-on using this software," it's the same concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up some really interesting points there, even from my experience, which I'm not anywhere near as involved in the identity space. I'm more of a
Mhm.
business analyst who dabbles into it a little bit, but I did get a certification in Okta, and I
Mhm.
started learning SailPoint IIQ. And I noticed the same thing, is that there's courses that are specific to each tool,
Mhm.
Okta, ForgeRock, SailPoint, whatever. But as you were saying, there's not really that many content pieces out there, courses out there that teach you the general concepts of identity and access management, which, as you said, is every company is trying to make sure that the right people get access to the right resources at the right time,
Right.
is the main concept of it. So that makes sense. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, by the way, Andrew. Like
Okay.
I'm hearing my own voice again.
Are you still here now?
Um, I think it's gone. Okay, perfect. All right. So I wanted to move on to another thing, which is you know, you talked a little bit about your personal life as well. So I want to highlight and talk a little bit about we have our domains and expertise, like we're business analysts or engineers
Right.
or whatever, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of soft skills that are needed, especially if you're in the BA space, especially, you need to have just enough understanding of the IT stuff to be dangerous, but you also
Mhm.
need all these business soft skills,
Mhm.
psychology skills, how to be diplomatic, all these things. So what would you say are some of those core skill sets that you picked up that allowed you to transition from BA to cybersecurity and partner with LinkedIn, speak on stages? Like, what do you think are those things that kept you pushing further and further above the average person in this area?
So I think one of the biggest things and the problem that a lot of engineers have, anybody, is communication. Okay.
Hmm.
And the core of that is active listening, where you have so much times where you hear a customer and you're just itching to give them answers, like itching to give them answers, and you just can't, or you want to jump in. And the problem that has is if you're my customer, Rafi, and you're talking to me and I'm asking questions and I interrupt you, you might have lost that train of thought. And that might be something important, like a big business requirement or something that's mandatory. I missed that. And I just really cut you off, which could be rude if you think about it. So what I think is core is active listening and really just taking it in. Yes, if you have something, just wait for them to be done. Wait for that pause. And then what I think people need to do is mirror back what you heard just to make sure you understand it, because that is huge in the IAM world. Because a lot of times when we're developing, when we're actually doing implementations for customers, a lot of it is requirement gathering. We got to make sure that we understand what we're doing. So if I ask you a question and you respond back to me, the response is, so I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You want us to do X, Y, and Z? Yes. And then the affirmation is yes, or but head on, you're on the right track. A lot of times I see, and even in my current organization today, is just people like to talk with each other. And I'm like, wait, you're missing the point, or we're not hearing each other, or you're not hearing the big things. So the soft skills is active listening is one.
Hmm.
The second one is communication.
Hmm.
Not everybody is going to understand MFA, SSO, OAuth, all these different acronyms. You need to understand who you're talking to in terms of your
Hmm.
audience and be able to explain things simplicity for your audience. For example, if I'm talking to a CEO of a company who I have 10 minutes of this dude's time, he or she's time, right? And I need to sell them that, look, we need more money to buy more products, whatever. I need to make sure that I make an analogy that this person understands it to sell what I need for a product there. If you start going down the rabbit hole or you start talking more technical, they have no idea. You know what the answer is going to
Right.
be? No. I have no idea what we're talking about. I don't have 10 minutes of your time. So I always tell people you need to be able to explain concepts to a sixth grader that they understand. And if they want to interrupt you and say, "Oh, actually, I know stuff," cool, you shift to more technical. But you always should assume that this person has no clue what you're talking about, no idea what acronyms mean, and you need to say it out loud from there. And that's something where I still work on that every day because I'm not perfect. But to me, those are the two big things in terms of an identity world in anything, any profession, honestly, is I
Hmm.
just shut up and listen. It's funny. My very, very, very first time I ever spoke at a conference was that
Hmm.
topic. Was as a
Wow.
Denververse when they came to DC, I think in 2018 or something like that. And
Hmm.
I was persuaded by my CEO at the time. His name is Matt Topper, mad cool guy, works for us, walk up called Uber Ether, his company. He pushed me to do that. And it was shut up and listen because we don't do that a lot. And that's awful. And we miss so much core things. And then to communicate properly, you want to make sure that you communicate effectively and know your audience because you should never assume they know what you're talking about. I feel like if you do those two things, you're in a good spot in terms of progressing your career because you come off as somebody who doesn't interrupt people, understands people. You can mirror back or regurgitate back for them, so you get that acknowledgement from them. And also, honestly, from a person perspective, you're gonna get more cookies or brownie points, right?
Mhm.
Because you're getting acknowledgement from them, like, yo, this dude hears me. I appreciate
Yep.
that, and that's so good because a lot of times it's not nice to be cut off all the time, and you're like, I don't want to get this doing more things. This guy always cuts me off, right? That's the bad start. And then communicate properly is depending on your audience, you are conveying your message properly to get answers. And something as a BA, when I was a BA, I was really good at it. That was one of the biggest things I had to do, right? Because I mean, Rafi, you yourself as a BA, right? I can be talking to a technical PM, my champion for my project, and then maybe I have to talk to maybe the CIO or CIO or CTO to be like, hey, here's the update on the project for you. If something should happen. And that's critical to getting answers or getting the approval to move forward from there. In my opinion, those are the two top soft skills that you need to be able to do.
Yep. And me being coming from the solutions architecture BA
Mhm.
space, I can definitely vouch for that as well. And as you mentioned, like, there's even a quote, something like the wise man has long ears and a short tongue. And it's
Right,
very true in this IT space because a lot of us, especially the more senior we get, we feel like we know everything. And so
right.
we want to act like we know everything. We just rattle on and on and on. And if you think about it, when you're dealing with stakeholders in particular, they just want to be heard. A lot of times
Right.
they simply want to be heard and they want to
Mhm.
know that someone listened, actively listened, took in their concerns, heard their concerns, and clarified those things, right? Like as you
Mhm.
said, listening to them, and once they finish speaking, saying, okay, from what you said, what I've understood is blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Do you agree? Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? And reiterating that understanding back to them, I think, is definitely a key skill set. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's definitely some really, really golden nuggets. We have just a few more minutes left, so I want to kind
Yeah.
of dive into one more area, which is
Yeah.
that, you mentioned that um, one of the things I remember reading on your website is that you're a give me one second. You've mentioned that you're pretty, involved even on a personal level. I think you mentioned you're a husband and a father as well. And
Correct.
so I wanted to kind of dig into that because a lot of us in this space, technology is always changing, and it's almost like you can say you're in the retail business. You own a gas station. You've been selling gas and convenience items the same way for the last 30 years. There's not new things you have to learn every day. But in this space, it's like constant learning. So even
Yeah.
though you might be getting paid 8 hours to do your job, you may have to spend another 2 to 3 hours a day just to keep up with the stuff, right? So what
Yeah.
is one piece of advice that you can give to people that are entering this space? How do you handle and manage the job versus the constant learning, trying to get these certifications, trying to keep up
Mhm.
with it, and balancing a personal life on top of it?
It's difficult because you're right. The space is ever changing. Today, for example, the hot topic in the identity world is non-human accounts, right? And it's always a fight on what do we call it? Is it an NHI, non-human accounts? Is something different from there? And
Mhm.
the structure behind it. So those are fun to read on LinkedIn about the people and their how they feel about it, which is fine. I get it,
Mhm.
right? The core concept is how do we handle people that are not human, source counts, for example, right? And to learn all that too is I try my best to block maybe an hour or two of my personal time where I dedicate to that, and everything else is family time, right? Or for me, it's I have a communication with my wife to make sure, like for example, the course I made. I told her, look, I'm gonna do my best to spend some time on this. I spent probably more than I wanted to, or I would make some sacrifices. What I mean by that is, okay, I'll get up at 6 in the morning, and when everybody's asleep from 6 to 8, for example, I will work on courses or I'll work on learning for myself before I do something.
Mhm.
Or if it's work, if it's maybe the weekend or something like that, this is my core time where I know I can do it. And I chose to do it, right? Because everything else is family time. And for work, same thing. try my best to balance it where core hours I do work, and then if I have to learn something on the side, if I have a pocket of space, maybe during lunchtime or something like that, I might put, or I have a free time on my calendar, I might put focus time on my calendar to say I'm in a meeting, but I'm not. I'm actually learning something, or I'm focusing on some task that I need to really understand more. I'll use that time for because I'm still doing it for work, so it's still considered work. I'm just learning it for myself, so I don't get bothered from there. So I think it's
Mhm.
really that's how I structure it myself. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Totally not. You can talk to my wife. Every time she's like, "Are you still done yet?" I'm like, "No, I'm still working on this damn course because I broke something." And it's all about just making sure that that's how it works, and that's how I do it today, right? Is I try my best.
Mhm.
So, for example, on my course, but I actually help people a lot of times during the day, and it's hard because as a solopreneur and working of course myself, I'm the only one managing it, right? So I do my best to
Mhm.
be very open to them and help them the best I can because to me they're my learners. But
Mhm.
like YouTube content, for example, I try to do it at 6 in the morning. Like I have it pre-done, and from 6 to 7 or 6 to 8, I'm recording from there, and that's not taking away from family time from there. And everything
Mhm.
else is all family time from there. And even like I do offer coaching, for example. I only do it between Monday through Friday, for example, from like 5 to 6 or 5 to 7. And this is agreement with my wife saying we're cool with this in terms of time frame, and then she's cool with that. And after that, that's it, right? So that's how
Mhm.
I balance everything from there, or how you as the listener or the watcher of this podcast, I feel like that's the best way for if you have a partner or anything like that, just communicate with them on how you want to handle that from a learning perspective. If you want to do it, or you're at the vacation on the beach, you want to sit there and read a book, have at it. You know what I mean? That's an opportunity
Mhm.
there too, because damn well I'm going on vacation sometime soon. I will bring a nerd book and I will read it too, because that's who I am. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then for work, hey, if you have a pocket of space where you're free, you have nothing to do, or you just have that time where you can do it, book yourself a focus time, and that's your time to learn for work.
Mhm.
Is to take that
Yeah.
time to really balance or learn because it's going to benefit you in your job.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are some very good points you made. And I think it's all about just having a structured approach to it and knowing when to turn it off. Because
Right.
as you mentioned, there's an ever changing and ever larger growing body of knowledge to be learned. And
Mhm.
even just for myself, I have to always think about like at what point do I call it a day and move on to other stuff in life. And I think a lot of that is just like you said, being efficient with your time. For me, I do a lot of audiobooks and I usually
Yeah.
listen to it 1.2 or 1.5 speed. I'm a
Me
huge
too.
user of yeah, you can really get in a
Yeah.
lot, right? As you're driving in the
Mhm.
shower, if you're eating, whatever, you're just having
Yeah.
that you're immersing yourself into that. And also, like we have so many tools nowadays that we didn't have before, like ChatGPT, right? If you have
Mhm.
even the basic version of ChatGPT, you can take a lot of technical knowledge and technical content, run it through ChatGPT and have it explain it to you like a sixth grader, right? And drill with it back and forth until you really understand it. And it does really make that learning process a lot, I think, in my experience, at least, a lot more digestible, just having
Yeah.
having it broken down in a different kind of way. So Andrew, just
Absolutely.
cut two more questions. I
Yeah,
know we're
dude.
wrapped pretty much on
No,
time.
dude, you're good.
My next question to you is that you're obviously extremely well knowledgeable. You've got a lot of experience. I've got tons of people. I actually make a few videos on YouTube as well that reach out to me constantly. Hey, Rafi, I want to learn Okta. I want to learn
Mhm.
SailPoint. And I personally am not in a position right now to be taking on students. I don't have that much experience in it. I don't have that much, time either. So I'm always looking for people I can refer to. So if people want to reach out to you, they want to take your course, they want to learn about identity access management. Maybe they're a BA, they want to get into IAM, or they're an
Mhm.
engineer that, software and developer, they want to switch. How can they reach out to you, and what's the best way to learn from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, called All Things Identity. You can go there, which is cool. On LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my night. You look me up on my name, Andrew Chanthaphone. That's fine too. Which I'm assuming you'll probably put on the chat because
Yeah,
my
I'll
name's
put those
long.
links.
Yeah, I have a long name. You too, man. So we have that long last name. It's age thing.
Yeah.
So those are two biggest things. And on both my website and my LinkedIn has the links to my course that you can talk about from there. Also on YouTube, I am All Things I Am. And
Hmm.
that's Canvas because it's my little icon with my little avatar that my wife did for me. And that's all my content that I've written so far. There's more to come from there, but these are free content where I give you so much advice in terms of identity, learning things, and then how to basically understand identity from there. And then that hopefully should have you translate. And I do videos on Okta and SellPoint to teach
Mm-hmm.
people that stuff too. And I'm gonna make more content on that one too to give to people to help them understand how to do XYZ things from there. And I'm hoping on LinkedIn too, I can expand I did a video on Okta beginning. I'm hoping that it's doing well. So I'm hoping that the more it does, the more I can persuade them to let me do a more advanced course in Okta for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Because not that Okta doesn't make bad content. They make awesome content on their learning content, but I also feel like you, somebody like me who does a day-to-day basis, which I think they do too. But a lot of times these companies hire trainers and they
Mm-hmm.
do it, but and I'm not knocking any trainer at all, but they don't sometimes have that hands-on experience that I do or that we do, right, as identity people. And I feel like that's more knowledgeable to kind of give your students the experience that you've experienced and how you would solve it in Okta today. Because a lot of times to me, that's what they're going to hit too in their career.
Yep. Awesome. I will be sure to put all those links at the end of this video on
Cool,
the
man.
when we publish this. And one last question I like to ask all of my guests is, what is one of your favorite books of all time and why?
Oh man, my favorite all time. It's a good question. I have so many fun books. You know, I I really I think my favorite book is um the okay. Am I allowed to say a bad word on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay.
You can
Um,
cuss.
no, well, it's two books actually. The first book is what was it? Something to do with don't be an asshole or there are times for assholes. It's Bob, I think it's Bob something. I found it's a great book, right? It's a book about basically don't be an asshole, right? And
Mhm.
try your best. We talked about earlier in this podcast about being the smartest person in the room. Sometimes you are that person, but you don't have to be an asshole about it, right? And I feel like
Mhm.
a lot of times is and it's a book that talks about the people, how do you handle them? And then and then the question is, are you the asshole, right? From there. So it's a good book. I'll send you the links, you can put it there, but it's a great
Sure.
book. It's a little older, but I feel like it's a good book for that. And because I think for me, it checks me from time to time. Because sometimes I can get very passionate and animated with what I'm saying that
Mhm.
step back like, wait, am I the asshole? You know what I mean? It's like the favorite Reddit thread, right? Am I the asshole Reddit
Okay.
thread? So that book, and then the Tim Scott has a great book, right?
Mhm.
On basically how do you effectively talk to people one-on-ones, right? And it's a great book where it's a four quadrants, and you have four quadrants, and you ask yourself, and when I give feedback to people, because people who are managers, I feel sometimes we do an awful job when it comes to giving feedback to people.
Mhm.
Kim Scott wrote a book about that. That's great. That talks about, are you somebody who is I think it's runes empathy, where you're like, hey Rafi, it's a great job, man. You did back, and in the back end, you're like, that sucked, dude. Or you're somebody who you give that compliment sandwich, right? Rafi,
Mhm.
great interview, but you dig into them, right? And you want to be somebody who is caring but very open
Mhm.
to telling them. So for example, and what she makes all the time is you can go and say, Andrew, you said a lot in that conversation or that interview or that podcast with Rafi. You look dumb. And you don't look like somebody who is very, very, you don't come up as very who's very polished, especially for somebody
Right.
who's in public. And I think you'd be great for that. Do you want to take a course on that? I'll be happy to help you with that. You're giving that legitimate feedback to people, but you're not being like a dick when it comes to that person. And you're
Mhm.
giving them to be very good with them and then to help them. You're doing it to help them and that you care from there, right? So I feel like
Right.
that is something where those two books have been so helpful for me in terms of how I
Mhm.
communicate with people, especially when I'm not a major right now, but as a manager, I use that a lot. And I tell people when I tell them that I'm the your manager, I send them the website to them. Here's how I handle feedback for you, FYI, and here's how I want to be. And you can ask me, I'm gonna be very direct to you, right? And I
Mhm.
think those are the two books that I love in terms of business books or books that has helped me in my career really be successful, but also be somebody who people can trust, right? And
Yeah.
not be somebody who is a jerk for the most part from there. So those are I think, two books that my two favorite books that I like. What's your
Great
favorite book, man?
recommendations.
What's your favorite book? I'll ask you.
Come on,
Yeah.
man. I'm not supposed to reveal that on my own podcast. If I had to go with one, I'd probably go with one very similar to the one that you said as well. Um, Probably Influence by Robert Cialdini. I'm a
Ah,
huge
yes. I read that book.
psychology nerd. I studied that in college. I'm still actually studying it now in a master's
Nice.
level. And so he identifies so many different biases that people have. Heuristics
Yes.
bias, availability bias, imposter syndrome. You named one
Mhm.
earlier.
Oh yeah.
Reciprocity, that's a huge one in the business space. Benjamin Franklin effect. There's so many of these biases that he identified, and he basically, wrote the book with the idea that there's all these different compliance tactics that compliance professionals use to get us to buy things, buy into their ideas or whatever it may be. And the book is all about finding out and catching those things and trying to either leverage them to do good things or not to fall victim to when someone's using it. So I thought it was really, really good book.
Absolutely. So, Kim Scott's book is Radical Candor. Just want to let you know, I had to look it
Hmm.
up real quick to make sure that's the book,
Perfect.
Radical
I
Candor.
like
And
it.
she has a great website. And then the book is The No Asshole Rule, and that's Robert Sutton.
Mm.
And those are my two favorite
What's-
books. And then I definitely read that influencer book from there, which is great. And there's one more, but it's escaping my head right now. But it's a book that helped me be able to speak in public because I know
Mm.
everybody hates speaking from public. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, dude, I would not want to do it ever. I would rather go and walk through coal, like walk, barefooted on coal than speak in public, where I love that stuff. Like to me, I
Right.
like speaking in public, I feed for that. I
Right.
love it. I'm that clown that likes to be interviewed. I love being interviewed. It's fun
Mhm.
for me. When I do an interview job, I'm like, great, let's go. Like I'll be happy to tell people. And speaking on stage, I think you can tell in the Okta course, I felt fine, right? I was sitting there in front of people
Mhm.
telling me exactly how I felt. No stress, no worries. It's just, it's a book. I'll send it to you, but it's escaping me. It helped me so much in preparing
Mhm.
to speak in public and being knowledgeable
Right.
and understanding your cues in terms of how do you get people engaged? What do you do when you feel nervous? What happens if the slides go down? What do you do? Right. And that is such a great book that I feel like other
Yeah.
people as English should do too to help them because a lot of times, even if it's not people speak in public, people have time just explaining back earlier in the conversation with us in the podcast, explain to
Right.
people maybe how to do things, right? Or to speak to a CEO, and they might get nervous, like, oh, what do I do? I'm a CEO, I might screw up. And it helps them prepare for it too. So that's
Absolutely.
too from there. So yeah, those are the books, man.
Awesome. Great advice, Andrew. I'll be sure to
Thanks,
link
man.
those in the bottom of the video.
Yeah.
Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again so much for giving us so much value in this just 30-minute episode. So we want to thank you so much for your time and
Yeah,
keep in
dude.
touch and hope to see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome.
So honored,
Yep,
man. Have a good one.
absolutely. Take care, Andrew. See you
Bye
guys. Thank
bye.
you. Mhm.